Every small town has its hero, the kind of person whose kindness feels like the glue holding everyone together. In Crestwood, Virginia, that person was Laura Bennett. She was the teacher who stayed after class to help struggling students, the neighbor who baked cookies for new families, the volunteer who never sought recognition. For 15 years, she was Crestwood's quiet symbol of compassion. But one spring morning, that image shattered when police unearthed a human body beneath her rose garden. In the calm, smiling face of their favorite teacher, the town saw something they could never unsee: the darkness that hides behind goodness. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Famous Crime Cases, where we uncover stories that challenge what you think you know about humanity. The teacher everyone loved, until police dug up her garden. Laura Bennett taught English at Crestwood High. Her classroom glowed with soft yellow light. Framed quotes from poets lined the walls: Frost, Dickinson, Angelou, and on her chalkboard, a daily reminder read, "Be kind. Everyone is carrying a story." Students adored her. Parents trusted her completely. "She had this presence," said one former student, "like she saw the best in you, even when you didn't." Laura's warmth wasn't forced. It was almost practiced. Every smile, every comforting word, perfectly measured. The kind of kindness that felt deliberate, as if she needed to keep proving something. Outside of school, she lived alone in a small, tidy brick house on Maple Drive. Her lawn was flawless, her flower beds immaculate. The air around her home always carried the faint sweetness of roses. Her neighbors, Evelyn and Robert Carter, often saw her gardening late into the evening. She treated those flowers like they were family, Evelyn later recalled. Was her peace. But in the spring of 2023, that peace began to change. The blossoms withered. The air grew thick with a strange metallic scent. Something, no one could say what, had turned sour in Laura Bennett's perfect world. On a humid April morning, Evelyn Carter called the town sanitation department. "There's a smell," she said. "It's coming from Laura's yard. Like something died." Later that afternoon, Patrol Officer Luke Harris, only 24 and new to the force, was dispatched to check it out. He expected to find a dead raccoon, maybe fertilizer gone bad. Instead, his shovel struck something soft, fabric, damp earth, and beneath it, a heavy, unmistakable stench. He froze. The fabric tore under his glove. And in that split second, Crestwood's peace collapsed. By nightfall, police tape circled the Bennett property. Floodlights cupped through the dark as forensic teams worked the yard. Reporters gathered on the sidewalk, whispering her name. And inside a patrol car, hands folded neatly in her lap, sat the woman everyone thought they knew, Laura Bennett. Detective Mark Rowan, a 20-year homicide veteran, was assigned to the case. He'd seen cold killers, impulsive ones, desperate ones. But Laura didn't fit any of them. When he entered the room, she looked poised, posture straight, expression serene. "Ms. Bennett," he began carefully, "we found human remains in your backyard that we need to know how they got there." Her response was measured, almost gentle. "Detective," she said, "I've lived in that house for 15 years. Whatever you found, it isn't mine." But Rowan noticed the micro-expressions, the slight tightening at her jaw, the whitened knuckles beneath folded hands. This wasn't shock that IT was control. Within days, investigators uncovered something even more unsettling. Laura Bennett hadn't always been Laura Bennett. 15 years earlier, she'd changed her name. Her original name was Elaine Porter. And under that name, she'd once been engaged to a man named Daniel Price, who vanished in 2008 from Brookvale, North Carolina. At the time, Daniel's car had been found near a cliffside overlook. No signs of foul play. No body. The case was ruled a likely suicide. The last person to see him alive? Elaine Porter. After his disappearance, she moved away. New town. New name. New life. No one questioned her, and no one had reason to. Until now. When the forensic results returned, the truth shattered every assumption. The remains beneath Laura's garden belonged to Daniel Price. The revelation spread like wildfire. Students cried on camera. Neighbors stood outside their homes, stunned into silence. How could she? Evelyn Carter told reporters, voice shaking. She was so kind. We trusted her with our kids. Crestwood's faith cracked, and with it, the comforting illusion that evil always looks obvious. When confronted with the evidence, Laura didn't deny knowing Daniel Price. She leaned back, sighed, and began a story she had rehearsed for years. She described him as charming but controlling, a man who loved her too much, too tightly. The night he disappeared, she said softly, we argued. He pushed me. I fell. When I woke up, he was gone. I thought he'd done something terrible. Her voice quivered with pain, just enough to sound believable, and for a fleeting moment, even Detective Rowan wondered, could she be telling the truth? The autopsy told a story her words could not. Daniel Price had been struck in the skull with a blunt object to NO defensive wounds, NO alcohol in his system. The bindings around the body contained Laura's DNA, and only hers. In her attic, detectives found a sealed box, old photographs, engagement mementos, and a yellowed envelope. On it, the words, Elaine, open only if I'm gone. Inside, a letter, supposedly written by Daniel Price, a suicide note. It apologized for his temper and hinted at a tragic accident involving his sister years earlier. Enough to suggest guilt, enough to paint him as broken. But then came the discovery that changed everything. The letter was forged. Handwriting experts confirmed it had been written by Laura Bennett herself. Detective Rowan's doubts hardened into certainty. Laura Bennett hadn't simply hidden a crime. She had authored a new identity. Every act of kindness, every volunteer hour, every gentle smile was a line in the story she'd written to bury the truth. For 15 years, she lived not as a murderer, but as her own redemption. What broke the case wide open was timing. Just weeks before Evelyn Carter's phone call about the odor, a popular true crime podcast had released an episode about Daniel Price's disappearance, suggesting that new DNA technology might reopen the case. To Detective Rowan, the realization was chilling. Laura hadn't been spooked by guilt, she'd been spooked by exposure. The soil disturbance proved she'd recently dug into her garden again, likely to move the remains, and that's when the smell escaped. Rowan and his team combed through Laura's past, old addresses, financial records, school applications. Everything tied neatly together, almost too neatly. In her previous life, Elaine Porter had studied psychology. She'd even interned briefly at a domestic abuse counseling center, learning exactly how victims speak, how trauma is expressed, and how empathy could cloak manipulation. To Rowan, it all clicked that she'd built a persona designed for protection, the perfect camouflage, kindness. He wondered how many people like Laura Bennett walked among us. Not pure evil, just terrified of being seen for what they'd done. By summer, the case became a national obsession. Cable anchors debated her motives. Talk shows asked if a good person can commit evil acts. Tabloids dubbed her the garden teacher. Social media dissected her every expression in the courtroom. Meanwhile, the town of Crestwood fractured. Some defended her, insisting she'd been abused. Others demanded she face the death penalty. Through it all, Laura remained eerily composed. Even when escorted past reporters, she offered a soft, polite smile, the same one she'd given students for years. The trial of Laura Bennett versus the Commonwealth of Virginia began on a gray November morning. Every major network carried it live. The prosecution called her manipulative, meticulous, and capable of extraordinary deceit. She lived among us, the district attorney thundered, teaching compassion and morality while sleeping above the man she murdered. The defense countered with a plea of diminished capacity, claiming years of emotional abuse had broken her psychologically. But Laura's own testimony sealed her fate. "I didn't mean to hurt him," she whispered. "I just wanted it to stop." For a heartbeat, the courtroom went still, not out of sympathy, but recognition. The quiet horror of realizing that even monsters can sound human when they speak. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty. Second-degree murder. Sentence, 25 years to life. Crestwood didn't celebrate. It mourned, not just for Daniel Price, but for the illusion that goodness is simple, pure, or easy to spot. Students returned to her room. Some cried, others tore her photograph from the wall. The school board removed her name from the registry, but the chalkboard she'd written on her final day remained. Be kind. Everyone is carrying a story. Detective Mark Rowan retired 2 years later. In his final interview, he said something that lingered long after the broadcast ended. People think evil looks obvious, but sometimes it wears cardigans and smiles. 2 years after her conviction, renovations began on the old Bennett home. As workers replaced the porch floorboards, they found a small tin box buried in the dirt. Inside were unsent letters, each addressed to one of her former students. Every letter ended with the same line: "Never bury what you should face. Secrets rot faster than any sin." It's unclear when she wrote them, before her arrest, or after the weight of her deceit caught up with her. But those words became her final lesson. Laura Bennett spent 15 years cultivating an image of virtue, believing good deeds could atone for a buried crime. But time, like soil, cannot hold secrets forever. The truth always grows back. And when it does, it reminds us of something painfully human, that no act of kindness can heal what was born in dishonesty. Because the roots we hide will one day break the surface, no matter how carefully we tend the garden above them. If you found this story chilling, subscribe to Famous Crime Cases for more real-life investigations and human stories.